Hello and welcome back to Toy Thursday with Johnny Tiger. The date is May 13, 2021. Right off the bat, we are looking at an action figure that some of you have already seen in the past in one of our earlier episodes. I believe this guy here was featured in the episode when I showed a bunch of Native American warriors. We are now very well into the Chinese Year of the Ox, going by the Chinese calendar. At the very beginning of the year, I entertained the notion that every year I'm going to do one Toy Thursday that will feature uh, characters, action figures that can represent the year we're in. Now this is a lofty goal because I'm actually not quite sure if I have action figures for every year that it's going to work out that way. But I'm going to do my best. So today we are going to do the episode where we are going to feature three strong warriors that can represent the year of the ox. Like I said, I planned on doing this episode way back in the beginning of the year, but because I wanted to go through all the birthday gifts that I've received, it took this long to get to this point. I did receive some wonderful, wonderful action figures for my 2020 birthday. So many of them, in fact, that it took us this long to finally get to the Year of the Ox episode. But hey, better late than never. And here we are. And we're opening the show by with this character that we've seen before, named Saber or Sabar, depending on how you want to uh, pronounce his name. Now, Saber is not necessarily an ox, but he is a buffalo, and I figure that that pretty much qualify him to be in one of the to be as one of the contenders to be representing the year of the ox. Saber was released in 1997 or around that time, so he is a very old buffalo. He is not just any buffalo; he is also a mutant buffalo. He is, in fact, in the story, the bad guy. He's actually the bad guy. Uh, the good guy was hell spawn called Renegade and Buffalo. This Saber, the evil mutant Buffalo, supposedly wiped out Renegade village and slaughtered everybody. And then Renegade came back from the dead to hunt down this evil mutant Buffalo. And their adventure just continued from there. They were primary enemies with each other. Like I mentioned before, that is actually quite ironic. I mean, usually we hear about people hunting buffalo, and then I mean, so to me, it probably would have made a little bit more sense if the story said that the human wiped out the buffalo's village, and then the buffalo now needs to go on this rampage for revenge or whatever, and he just refuses to stay standing. There we go. Um, But no, the story has this Buffalo being the bad guy, and he killed a whole bunch of humans, and then the one human warrior came back from the dead and tried hunting him down. That is quite an interesting twist on what our expectation is. Now, there have been two versions of Saber. One was with a brown fur, one was with a gray fur. I actually have no idea which version I have here. I've had this guy for so long, since when he was released, so I actually can't remember which version I have. So maybe you guys can comment on in the comment section and let me know. Saber is very humanoid. He stands on two very strong legs, and He has very thick fur on his back, like a buffalo should have, a proud buffalo. And if you look at down here, he has a tiny little squiggly tail, cute little tail. He has this big spiky armband on his left arm, and on his on the top of his shoulder, on his left shoulder, there's a ballista or a crossbow, or I'm not quite sure. I really don't know what that's supposed to be. It's a missile launcher of some kind that allow him to shoot projectile weapon at his enemy. And this thing is kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it's cool. This actually can move up and down like that, like that, up and down. And uh, this actually is spring loaded, so you can fire it like that. I usually take this twist tie and tie it on, so it's not going to just go flying off all the time. On his right arm, he has more spiky armor. Actually, I'm not sure if these are his armor or these spikes just grow out of his arm like that. And on his right forearm, there's a huge spiky blade thing that I'm sure he can just go chopsy chopsy with on people with. You can see his general design is very ape-like, with overly long arms and short little legs, a very powerfully built body, uh, quite a bulky action figure, especially for his time, for back in the uh, late 90s, 1997. His head is kind of low between his shoulder. It does rotate side to side, but there's no way to get him to look up or down. He's kind of stuck, hunched over like that, unfortunately. His arm moves at the shoulder and at the wrist. He only has three fingers on his hand. Actually, this is one interesting design with Saber. Is his hands actually look a little bit like hoofs on a bovine animal. The other hand moves up and down at the shoulder and at the elbow. He can wave at you, wave goodbye. Wrist move too. I got to be really careful with his articulation because, like I said, really old figure. These old figures break very easily. The waist also twists side to side. Legs kicks back and forth. Other leg, I don't think the other leg moves actually. That's kind of strange. So actually considering his time, the time of his release, he is quite well articulated as an action figure. That I will say he's quite impressive in that way. That he is very well articulated as an action figure. The next action figure I'm going to show you guys that will represent the proud bovine family on my shelf is also from Todd McFarlane. In the early 2000s, when Todd McFarlane was on his way out, like he was a best toy maker for quite a while, and then, as I mentioned before in past episodes, in the early 2000s he started to slide down and wasn't so great anymore. One of his last original property that got cancelled after the first series, sadly, was called Warriors of the Zodiac. Warriors of the Zodiac was not tied in with any movie or comic book or anything like that. It was just a series of cool looking monsters and action characters that would represent all 12 of the Zodiac. So, in a sense, it was really, really sad when it only made it out of the first series because we ended up only getting 4 Zodiac warriors rather than the entire 12. And that was kind of annoying. Uh, at the time, I did not get the characters that were released. For one reason or another, I can no longer remember why. But it took me many years of trying to hunt them down. And they were actually kind of hard to find, especially in a complete set. Last year, about last November, I just happened to take a look on eBay, and to my surprise, the first 4 figures were sold in a complete set by a seller right here in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. So without a second thought, I snatched them up and got a fantastic deal out of the seller, and I was really happy. Finally, I could have some of these cool warriors of the Zodiac. Just happened, one of the figures from the 4 was a warrior that represents Taurus, which I'm going to show you guys right now. This is Taurus, made by Todd McFarlane, as representing the zodiac sign of Taurus. Right away, you guys can see that Taurus almost looks like a cousin to Saber. I mean, we're going to get them to stand together side by side at the end of the video, but just off the design, uh, Taurus almost looked like a McFarlane's second attempt at making the Saber character. Again, you have the really bulky, this time super muscular build. I mean, this guy's just ripped on the big, bulky muscles. And again, you have the spikes going everywhere on his body, on this big shoulder armor. This is really sharp. Like if I grab this too hard, it hurts my hands. This thing is not child friendly. I'm telling you that. Again, we got the hunched over posture uh, with a evil looking spiky bull head with knobby little curved horn and sharp looking uh, are those tusks on the side of his nose? I'm not sure. I think those are tusks. Uh, so this is like a gladiator uh, bull, a gladiator ox. And look at this weapon he's holding. He's got a huge uh, meat tenderizer looking like a. On the one side, it's all spiky like a meat tenderizer, and on the other side is this big single spike that is really sharp. Like, this can actually poke through this cardboard box he's standing on. And on the other side of the handle, we have this spiky ball that's counterweight to the big hammer. So this is one vicious looking uh, weapon for this character. I mean, we got a big, bulky brute with a bull's horn and evil looking tusk and a lot of muscles and holding this huge weapon that just got spikes and weight to it. Take a look at his back. Now, this chain that's connecting his shoulder armor together, that is actually real metal. That's really cool. I love having real metal on action figures. I think that, to me, that always adds to the appeal of the figure, making them seem just a little bit more worthwhile, worth the money, worth the cost, when they have real metal material on them. Now, if you look up the picture of this guy, of Taurus, on the website, he actually was supposed to have little arrows sticking out of his back, because the idea was he's so vicious that someone shot him full of arrows, and he wasn't able to stop him. But I decided to throw away those arrows and just pose him without those because I think a warrior walking around with arrows sticking out of his back is just really silly. It's cool for that particular image that they were trying to portray. You know, he's walking away from battle and he's got arrows sticking out of him. You know, that's cool. But when I want a warrior hanging out on my shelf, I don't need him to be having arrows sticking out of his back. You know, just silly. So I displayed him without those arrows. Like Saber, Taurus, he also have a tail, but his tail, as you can see, is really long. That's actually kind of interesting because that tail reminds me more of a like a tail on a lion or any kind of big cat. That doesn't look like the tail on an ox or a bovine. And yes, this is a mayonnaise jar lid he is standing on because he is so top heavy and his weapon is so heavy, he just won't stay standing. So I anchored him to a mayonnaise jar lid that will keep him nice and balanced. Doesn't look all that cool, no, but it serves its function. Also, I don't know if you guys can see these wicked looking fingernails on his hand. I mean, these are some long nails on a character like this. It's like having a big hammer is not enough. If you get too close, it's going to claw out your face or something. Just one vicious looking bovine, one vicious looking representative of the ear of the ox. By the way, this action figure is there's a bit of irony here too, because I just noticed that if you look at the other side, the spiky, the side of the hammer with a single spike, that looks an awful lot like the kind of thing that they used to slaughter uh, bulls and cattle. That looks like the kind of mallet they used to slaughter cattle. So, so we got a bovine creature. We got a bovine character armed with the very weapon that people usually use to slaughter his own kind. If that's not irony, I don't know what is. Last but not least, I'm going to show you guys another character that is a lot newer and in many ways the best out of the three representative of the year of the ox. And interestingly enough, he also has a connection to Todd McFarlane, although he is not made by Todd McFarlane. You see, back when McFarlane was at the top of his game, there were four guys working for him that did all the sculpting, design, painting, and stuff like that. That's why his figures were so good because these four guys were so talented. After a few unpleasantness, the four guys that used to work for McFarlane went independent and opened their own company, calling themselves the Four Horsemen. And now they have an online store called the Four Horsemen Studio. I really, if you're into medieval fantasy action figure, if you're into exclusive action figures, cool action figures, the action figures you can't just walk into a store and buy. If you want, are really into unique action figures that a lot of other people don't have, I suggest you go Google Store Horseman. That's Horsemen, Store Horsemen, and follow their stuff because the Four Horsemen make some of the best action figures I have owned to this date. I will also tell you this that I'm a very cynical kind of person when it comes to my money. Uh, Usually, if you tell me to pre-order an action figure, I'm like, nah, 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 nah. I'm not going to give anyone my money until I see the action figure or I see the reviews. Not so with Four Horsemen stuff. With Four Horsemen studio, if I know that I want the character they make, I'm going to put down the money a year, 2 year before it's being made. I'm going to buy into the pre-order because I'm so trusting of these guys' quality that I'm totally confident in that if I buy a character, I'll be happy with it when I buy from Four Horsemen Studio. Four Horsemen Studio have come up with some really interesting figure lines, and right now their biggest project is called Mythic Legion. Mythic Legion is set in a fantasy world where there are many, many factions elves, dwarves, giants, trolls, demons, and knights, and templars, and paladins going to war with each other, against each other, in a huge, ever expanding fantasy world. It's not tied to any cartoon movie or anything. It's completely original, but it is so popular now they are actually having their own video game made for Mythic Legion. And there's been a couple of novels and comics, I believe, released on Mythic Legion. The Mythic Legion action figures have been so popular that as soon as the pre-order goes up, like when it's being announced and people can start pre-ordering the next series of action figure for the Mythic Legion line, within days, literally within days, the GoFundMe or any kind of uh, fundraising platform hit millions of dollars. Millions of dollars. Like we're talking about buying plastic action figure. Millions of dollars. People are that impressed by the Four Horsemen studio. So the next action figure I'm showing you is from Four Horsemen studio, and I'm going to uh, hopefully give you guys an idea why these guys are my go-to when it comes to cool action figures. This guy is called Torion. He is, yes, he is also a minotaur, uh, a person with a head of an ox or a bovine animal, just like Saber and Renegade. Not Renegade, Saber and Taurus. But Torion is very well equipped, and he is a very striking looking action figure. He is a black bull, so his head is got black fur and evil looking red eyes and sharp looking horns. His body is not squat and ape-like like the previous two figures we've shown. Torion's body is very lean and strong, and like a very capable warrior. And he's clad in blue armor with some gold accent, and his skin is black, just like the fur on his head. This is a brand new figure. I pre-ordered Torion actually early last year, and finally received him in back in January this year. And he's been sitting in his box, and I just opened him today. So you guys are the first people that uh, share this moment with me, opening a new action figure, greeting Torion into this world. So who is Torion? Who is this impressive-looking warrior? Well, actually, Torion is not a warrior. Believe it or not, he's a sorcerer. He's a mage. You see, Torion belonged to a race of minotaurs called the Shadow Minotaur. In the Mythic Legion world, minotaurs were the good guys. They're the peace-loving, grass-eating, nature-loving people. But there's a faction of minotaurs that got kidnapped by uh, the, some evil demonic being and got experimented on and creating the shadow minotaurs who were evil and specialized in dark magic. And the most powerful of the Shadow Mentor is this young warrior called Torion, who actually stand in representing the Shadow Mentor at the Circle of Puxus, which is the circle of the most powerful dark mages, dark wizards, dark witches in the Mythic Legion world. So Torion is a very capable, very dangerous magic user. This is why he is armed with a very long staff, the magical staff. You need to use this to cast all kind of magic. But unlike many depictions of sorcerers and wizards and mages, this guy is not frail. Most wizards are depicted to be very frail, but look at the muscles of this guy. I mean, he's got muscles like he lifts weights every day. Look at the muscles on his back. Just to show that he is not afraid of getting his hand dirty if magic is not enough. He is armed with a shield and a huge sword that he carries at his waist. So this is not just a mage, this is a swordsman, this is a warrior, and he's a minotaur. He has this gigantic spiky armor shoulder pad that make him look even bigger than he already is. A spiky arm guard on his forearm and spiky shin guard on his leg. And he got some kind of a plated armor skirt thing that cover his lower region. But other than that, he is actually quite naked, very muscular, very naked. Uh, and he got very dirty feet. He got brown hooves that look like he's been walking everywhere. Like I said, his skin color, his fur color is primarily black. He has red evil eyes, and he has uh, gold and blue, mostly blue armor with a golden accent on them. So he is a very attractive figure. Now, I will say that there's one issue I have with Mythic Legion action figure in general. Uh, but that is just me as a blind person. To save money, a lot of the characters in the Mythic Legion series share same armor, same weapons, same body, same arms. So it's like the Four Horsemen studio created uh, a set of body parts, a set of weapons, a set of different armors, and then they just interchange them. Head A go with body B, or then the next figure we will have arm B go with leg C, and then with a uh, head B going with helmet A. So they just basically interchange everything. So we see a lot of reused parts in. If you collect a lot of Mythic Legion action figures, eventually, especially for a blind person, eventually every figure start to feel the same. So this is why I actually have to hold back in purchasing Mythic Legion action figures because I want uh, figures and body types that I'm not overly exposed to. Otherwise, to me, I feel like I'm wasting my money buying the same body parts over and over again. Luckily, I have not seen this body configuration as used here on Torion before. So this, while a lot of people who have collected a lot of Mythic Legion say he is they can identify the body was the same body used on the barbarian. The armor is the same armor that used on the uh, gladiator. The head is the same head that used on some other minotaur. People who collect a lot of Mythic Legion, they can name all these body parts. Now, for me, I have the advantage. I haven't came across these body parts yet. So this is brand new for me. This is very exciting. But I do want to complain about that with regarding to Mythic Legion. Look, if you are raising millions of dollars on uh, GoFundMe or fundraising and pre-orders, if you're raising millions of dollars like that, then you should be able to give most characters very unique bodies, very their own unique armor. They shouldn't have to all share similar stuff. I understand that was a necessity in the beginning of the project, but now that Mythic Legion has been such a roaring success that every time the pre-order get posted, it instantly almost sell out after a few weeks. I think that the time for using these stock body parts is past. I think as supporters of Mythic Legion, we should be allowed to have several different, more different body types, more different armor. I think that's just fair to say. You know, when you're raising this much money, I think now when you're raising millions of dollars, you're still settling us with the same armor, same weapon over and over again, then this becomes a little bit of a ripoff. That's just my opinion. If any of you who are into Mythic Legion or a supporter of Four Horseman Studio, please don't hate on me. That's just my opinion. Um, but see, when we come into a character like Torion here, this is another reason why I think this reuse of body is a problem. Because while this body looks really good, it's really muscular, honestly, it's not big enough. Like, if this guy is a minotaur, he's supposed to be gigantic, at least comparing to most other Minotaur action figure, he is quite skinny. He is quite small. Like from the only parts that look like a Minotaur is his feet and his head. The rest of him just look like a regular sized human. So I think that's a bit of a cop out. I think uh, something like this should be bulkier. I think he should be taller, wider, bulkier, and I think that would be better overall. Uh, but hey, I still bought him. I still plugged in my credit card, so I knew what I was getting into. So that's it. That's the three representative of Year of the Ox. We're going to bring Taurus and Saber back into the frame for a big bovine reunion. In the center is Torion, the Minotaur mage warrior, who's suddenly refusing to stand for some reason. Come on, you got a staff in your hand. You shouldn't have problems standing. There we go. On the left, we have Taurus from Warriors of the Zodiac. And finally, on the right, we have Saber, the earliest of the Minotaurs. And honestly, when you stand them together like this, is when you can really see what I mean when I say that Torion just looks too small. Despite of him being super muscular, despite of him being, I think he's actually taller than the other two. He just looked too scrawny comparing to the other two bovine warriors. So I think I don't know. I don't think the Four Horsemen will ever see this, but if they do, this is just my thought. I think something like the Minotaur need a much bigger body to make it work. Thank you for checking out today's Toy Thursday. At long last, we get the Ear of the Ox episode out of the way. We'll be back again tomorrow for Fitness Friday. For now, have a good night.